The venues may be ready, but what about the rest of the games? Alright, hey guys, Blood Moon Bobby here, and my Olympic coverage is continuing. Don't think that the video on the torch relay was the only one, because it's going to keep going from here. And I promise I'm going to be talking about more Olympic Games, not just Tokyo 2020. I'm always tweeting about Olympic Games coming up and the ones in the past. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm always talking about it. I'm even having, a lot of polls out right now about the Olympic Games. Like, I've recently been doing some asking people about who they think their favorite mascots are and where people think the 2026 Winter Olympics will be. I've already done polls on people asking should it be in Calgary. I have one as of this filming. It's going to end soon, but I have one on asking people if it should come to Stockholm. And hopefully I'll have polls out soon, because I know there's a lot more cities that are interested. Like, I know Sion in Switzerland is interested. 3 cities in Italy are interested. Sapporo is interested. I know I pronounced it weird, but and who else is there? There's one. I think there were like several others, but yeah. But yeah, my Olympic coverage is continuing. It's not just going to be about Tokyo 2020. There's going to be a lot more. In fact, as I'm actually trying to do a podcast with a friend of mine, we're writing a story about the potential of esports being in the Paris 2024 Olympics for our school newspaper, and I'm hoping to do a podcast on that, but we'll have to wait and see. We were going to do it tomorrow. It's not going to be on video like it is now, but we were hoping to do that, and I'll let you know if that actually happens. So anyway, on to the topic of this video, and that is that all the venues for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and Paralympics have been approved by the International Olympic Committee, and this is coming on the heels of them approving all the soccer venues that will be used for Tokyo 2020. And they include the Tokyo Stadium, the Sapporo Dome, the Miyagi Stadium, the Ibaraki Kashima Stadium, the Saitama Stadium, and the Yokohama Stadium. So yeah, I think it's really pretty cool that the Sapporo Dome is on the list, because as a lot of you know, Sapporo hosted the Winter Olympics in 1972. So I don't know if the intention was to be a nice nod to the 72 Winter Olympics, but I think it's pretty cool. And also, not to go off on a tangent, but I know for the Sapporo proposal for 2026, is if Sapporo wins, the Sapporo Dome will be the main stadium for if they win. So yeah. So overall, the Tokyo 2020 Olympics will be utilizing 43 venues, and in keeping with Agenda 2020, of those 43 venues, 25 are existing facilities, including, in one that comes to mind is the Nippon. I keep forgetting the entire name. It's the I think it's the place where they're gonna hold like the judo. It's the. Let me double check that. Oh, the Nippon Budokan. I know that's one of the stadiums that'll be used, and 10 of the venues will be temporary, and 8 of them will be permanent. So, I feel like. So it is good that for the majority of the venues are either going to be pre-existing facilities or temporary venues, because that's the thing. In case you don't know what Agenda 2020 is, it's IOC President Thomas Bach's kind of move to make the Olympics much more sustainable and affordable. And part of that is they don't really want to pick cities where they have to build many of the venues, because cities like Athens or had financial disaster because they had to build many of their venues. In fact, the Athens Olympics, even though it was really cool that the Olympics came back to Greece, those Olympics were are blamed for, although it's kind of, I would definitely say it was definitely part of why Greece had a lot of debt and the Sochi Olympics. They built. I heard for Sochi they literally had to build everything, but because of that, it resulted in the highest budget ever for an Olympic Games at $51 billion, and that's why when they were doing the bidding process for 2022, only Beijing, China, and Almaty, Kazakhstan were the only cities in the running. So they are definitely keeping with the whole Agenda 2020. Although one kind of scary thing is that for in total so far the current budget is $20 billion to host the Tokyo 2020 Games, with 70% coming from the public. And even though, yeah, I'm pretty sure, $20 billion is something, it's a lot of money, but I think Japan could handle it. The scary thing is that $20 billion, that's actually a little bit up from Rio and Pyeongchang's Olympic Games, because those games each costed around $13 billion respectively. So, and even with Agenda 2020, in this case, it's costing a lot of money. Part of that I know is because since it's Japan, they have a lot of money. I know part of that budget is going toward building the new national stadium, which was initially a disaster because they wanted to go with Zaha Hadid's bike helmet one. I honestly do like the design of the original new national stadium, the original design for the new stadium. But yeah, it was definitely too expensive, so that's why they went with a different version instead, like a cheaper version to build. So yeah, that's the kind of thing. So that the IOC is probably going to watch. I'm definitely excited to see Tokyo host the Olympics, but they have to keep in mind that some countries are more willing to put more money into the Olympics than others. Like I know, in the case of going back to the 2020 bid, after the $51 billion announced, after Sochi costed $51 billion, cities like Stockholm, Sweden, Krakow, Poland, and Oslo, Norway, in those countries, nobody really wanted to support the Olympics in 2022 because of that. Although granted, $20 billion is still quite a bit less money than the $51 billion. It's a little less than half, but I think it's just something the IOC is going to have to keep in mind, especially if they want newer countries to host or countries that haven't hosted the Olympics in decades if they want them to host. So, yeah, I know for 2026, I was kind of hoping Stockholm would get to host the Olympics again. The last time they hosted the Olympics was in 1912, so, but it'll be interesting to see if places like Stockholm are still going to be in the running for 2026, and they're going to be watching how much these games cost to see if they want to host it themselves. So, I mean, I'm a big believer in the Olympic Games. I mean, I know it's really fun and it brings the world together. It just would be nice if they didn't cost as much. So while the budget's there, another concern I do have with Tokyo 2020 though is that some of the venues are kind of questionable. Places like or not just venues, but even one of the events. And there's word that boxing may be taken out, and the IOC reserves the right to take boxing out of the Olympics. Wish it could be there though, because I don't want to see sports being dropped out, especially since there are fans in some capacity. That sounded kind of mean, but I know there were. If you're a boxing fan, I'm definitely on your side. I want to see boxing be in the Olympics. So, and I heard in the case of boxing, it was because the rules were just kind of all over the place. The Olympic boxing rules were all over the place. But I think that's something that the organizers just really need to iron out. Since boxing, it's still performed in the United States, so I think it's something that the IOC could definitely take on. Other concerns lie more with the venues, this one here doesn't concern me as much. Here it says the Fukushima Azuma baseball stadium is under question because it is close to the, not super close, but it's kind of a ways away from the nuclear plant that got hit during the 2011 earthquake. From what I hear, though, it's technically safe. There's some parts of Fukushima that aren't safe to go to because of that earthquake. But as for that stadium itself, and I would say a good part of the city of Fukushima is definitely safe. In a sense, it's really just it's a way for Fukushima, to kind of give a nod to say, hey, we've come back strong after the earthquake, so and now we're hosting baseball. Like, it's a very symbolic sort of a thing. I mean, it doesn't concern me too much. I mean, if it was hosted like closer to like the nuclear reactors and so forth, I would be much more concerned. But as is, I don't think it's that big of a deal. What's a bigger deal to me is things like there's concerns that the sailing venue might conflict with local fishermen, and probably the biggest of all is the place where the triathlon is going to be held, the Odaiba Marine Park. There's actually reports of high bacteria levels in the water, and as you know, in triathlon, the three events are running, cycling, and swimming. So that is something that I know the organizers are working on. I did read up on how there's kind of a sort of layered process to getting rid of the bacteria. Although, like, pretty much everybody else, now the question is, will they be able to get it out in time? Since I know, especially because of that $20 billion cost, and I know the organizers want to try to bring it down a bit, that they're not going to want to move it to a different park in Japan, even though I'm pretty sure there's a lot of places, like, because I think that's the thing, there should be a lot of places in Japan that could host a triathlon. And so why they picked Odaiba Marine Park, I mean, it could be that they didn't do enough research before picking that place, and that's definitely a problem. So I think, in this case, it was more of a preparation thing, that they should have picked a different park in Japan that could have hosted the triathlon before picking Odaiba Marine Park. So now they're gonna have to clean up the water through that multiple screening process to get it out in time for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, because even though there's a lot of things that go into the Olympics, including security, you don't want people going home from the games feeling sick from swimming in the waters of Odaiba Marine Park. Like, I know in Rio 2016 one of the concerns was the Zika virus, so Tokyo 2020 is not going to want to have that sort of chip on their side, because if people get sick, it's going to steer people away, and it's just bad publicity for the Tokyo organizers. It's going to show that it's going to make them seem like they care more about bringing people to the Olympics than keeping them safe. So yeah, I know there's also concerns with things like the trains that'll also get packed, so I'm hoping that the Tokyo organizers are looking to that as well. It's kind of miraculous, like, as a guy who comes from like the LA and Long Beach area, like in those days, like for the Los Angeles Olympics in 1984, the way they got around the traffic was they had warnings in advance, and they spread the venues out all over Southern California, which, so maybe I don't know if if Tokyo 2020, the organizers could really take notes from LA 1984, because in this case it's more of a transit thing than just traffic. And my microphone just died, but anyway, to reiterate, I personally I do think Tokyo 2020, they definitely have a good plan in place. Like, they are doing, I would say, a decent job getting prepared. I would just say I think this is more for the IOC going forward, is they're going to have to keep in mind that some countries are more willing to spend money on the Olympics than others, because after all, it is still, a really pricey event. So they're just going to, so even if a country could afford to host like a $20 billion or $15 billion games, they're going to have to keep in mind in the future that not all countries are going to be down with that. So I guess you could argue in that respect some countries are keeping that in mind. Like, I know for LA 2028, the current budget is around $5 billion, but of course that could go up, especially with how they're wanting, like in LA, they want to expand the train lines, and they're building some, like, new venues, although I don't know if the LA Stadium at Hollywood Park is technically part of the Olympic budget, because I know that's being privately funded. And in the case of LA, they have a lot of corporate sponsors, like, especially with some of the stadium. Like in LA, there's the Bank of California Stadium and the StubHub Center and the Staples Center. Whereas in the case of Tokyo 2020, they don't have that as much. So it's just something that the IOC is going to have to keep in mind. And there's definitely other things that Tokyo is going to have to iron out before the games begin, with things like the boxing regulation and the bacteria-filled water at Odaiba Marine Park. So, alright guys, this has been Blood Moon Bobby. Let me know, do you like these Olympic videos? How do you personally feel about Tokyo's plans? Especially like if you live in Japan, since you're going to have to pay that for taxes, do you like, is the $20 billion budget, is it good? Is it too excessive for you guys? And yeah, just be sure to let me know down in the comments. And if you have any sources for stories, including Olympic stories, because I'd like to cover way more than just Tokyo 2020, be sure to email me. My email address is down below in the description. So thanks guys for watching. Hey guys, this has been a Blood Moon Bobby video. Please like this video or dislike it, and please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.